Hi, everyone. I wanted to share this presentation with you. I did it with some parents that have young children. And basically, what I'm seeing right now is that there's so much information out there that it's like we're drowning in all the noise. And here's what we know: brain development hasn't changed, child development hasn't changed. We as a society have changed. And so I, again, was trying to figure out, how do I help parents sort through the noise? How do we get back to the basics? And about that time, I was wasting time watching reels and TikTok videos, and there was a cookie uh, video, and a lady, I think, took peanut butter and an egg and mixed it together and baked it and said, "Look, I made cookies." And I was like, "No, no, you made sadness. That's not a cookie." I eat healthy, but even I know there's some things I don't call a cookie. A cookie has to have basic ingredients. And you can change that cookie as much as you want, but it still has to have basic elements. So I took this analogy to do this training, and I wanted to share it with you because at the end of the day, raising kids is tough, but we also have to understand that we're drowning in information. We're drowning in what's the next best thing, forgetting that it's just the basics the brain requires, and it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. So let's talk cookies. This is what every child's brain needs to thrive. So, first of all, what's your favorite cookie? Chocolate chip, sugar, peanut butter. We all have our favorite kind of cookie. But again, what do they all have in common? They may have different flavors, but they all have certain elements that make them a true cookie, that make them what we look for. So, what makes a cookie a cookie? Well, we know every cookie has to have a foundation, flour or a flour substitute if you're gluten-free, something that creates structure. And we know that every cookie needs a binder. Eggs, or some people use applesauce. It's something that holds it together. And then it's got to have some kind of a rising agent, something to make it poof up. There's some cookie recipes out there, and I air quote cookies, that don't have this rising agent. And when you bake them, they're not that traditional yummy cookie. And then of course there has to be some sweetness to it. Some sugar or honey or maple syrup. And if it's not, it's just a cracker. Nobody wants a cracker when we want a cookie or a rice cake. So, what if the child's brains needs these ingredients too? And it's not a lot. What if they need a foundation? And what we would look to that is like safety and predictability. This is what creates that secure foundation where that brain can grow, knowing it has a safe place. How about a binder? What holds us together? The number one need of a human brain is connection. And of course, there's some talk that the number one need is safety if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but there's some new challenges to that says, what if connection is safety? Because see, when we're not connected to our home or our tribe, we're vulnerable. And so when we're not connected, the brain becomes stressed. What binds us together as that family? And this is one of the areas we'll jump into a little bit down in this conversation, where the technology is interrupting that natural flow. And then a rising agent. What helps it to grow? And children need challenges and boundaries. They need that productive struggle so that the brain is pushing into new areas. The brain wants to be challenged to grow. And then finally, what is that sweet stuff? What is that family culture, that joy? What is it that makes your family your family? We could probably talk for days if I had 20 people in the room about your traditions at Christmas or your birthday traditions or anything that makes your family that specialness that sets you apart from every other family. At the end of the day, same is kind of true for a cookie, right? My husband loves oatmeal raisin cookies where I may like a peanut butter cookie, but they still have that flour, that binder, that rising agent, and they are both still very sweet. So let's talk about these pieces. So the first thing we know our littles need is, and not only our littles, us adults too, we need safety and predictability. Our brain craves predictability. It is a prediction machine. Now, here's what's fascinating about the human brain. It craves predictability, but it also likes novelty in a safe way. So this is one of those things that kind of is hard for some people to understand, and it's hard for me to understand too. I like my routine to be a certain way. I like things to be a certain way, but sometimes I may like things to be a little different within the main structure. Okay, so let's say we like to go out to eat every Friday night. Okay. Maybe you like to go to a different restaurant. That's a very simple way of looking at it. The brain doesn't like to get numbed out by no novelty. So, but we do know that we love our routines. Children love predictable routines. Bedtimes are important. Meal times are important. Having those consistent, who's sitting down to dinner with us, who's having the plays a role in the bedtime routines is another important piece. Consistency is extremely important because once the brain can predict what's going to happen, it spends other resources navigating, building new skills. If it's unpredictable, it's too busy trying to figure out, is it safe? That predictability reduces that stress and builds confidence. And then that emotional safety, like, is it okay if I make mistakes here? Is it okay? Is this a house that has a growth mindset? In other words, take a risk, and if you make a mistake, we understand we're going to learn from it. Not a fixed mindset that says I can never be wrong or I can never take a risk because look, learning is taking a risk. You're doing something new. So it can be a little scary. I think some of us forgot what it's like to be 4 or 6 or 8. So what we know is that strong foundation helps everything else grow. We got to have that flour to that cookie. Okay. I'm telling you, those peanut butter egg cookies did not look good. Anyways, the next thing we need is a binder. And again, this is this whole piece about what connects us, what makes us a family, a unit. This does not have to be just our mother and father. This can be grandparents, our neighbors. This could be the people in our neighborhood who serve as our family, our church friends. These this is our strong connections. This bonding piece is what we're looking for to help us link up as we're brave enough to learn new things. We know that oxytocin is extremely important for helping reduce the detrimental impacts of stress on the human body for both children and adults. It is the bonding hormone. It tells the brain it's okay. It tells the brain you can relax. Um, Mothers and children, fathers and children, we have this when we give a long hug. You can actually even have an oxytocin release when you're petting a dog or a pet. Um, Presence without technology is here. Having that quality time at active listening, where yes, you are having a conversation about is a unicorn more like a triceratops or a horse? Yes, yes, those conversations will wear you out. Um, but that's them understanding they're valued. That's them understanding they're more important than a Facebook reel. They're more important than a cell phone. If a cell phone's out in the room, put it up when a child is in the room. All right. And then belonging. They know that there is an unconditional love. They know this is where they belong. They are valued. And not only are they loved for the good, they are also loved for the mistakes they are naturally going to make. I love this that kids don't need perfect parents, they just need connected ones. Look, no one loves a perfect person. I know I don't. I have my daughter is now in her 20s and she made me a necklace a couple of Christmases ago and it's perfectly imperfect. That's who we all are. We're all on this journey. We're all just walking each other home. We are all perfectly imperfect. And to know that I am loved by my family for all of my imperfections is just a really great safe place to land. Make sure you give that to your kids. Finally, not finally, we also need a rising agent. Oh boy. We're not here to make kids happy and comfortable all the time because guess what? You learn when things are uncomfortable. You learn when you have to do things out a little bit outside of your current level. Okay. So, but we have to have clear expectations. The rule on Monday is the rule on Saturday, is the rule on Sunday. And those need to be consistent between all adults. So, expectations for grandparent A, grandparent B cannot be different from grandparent C and D, and then, or even worse, mom or dad or the primary caregivers in the home. That starts to create some serious inconsistency in the brain when there are very different expectations of behavior. Now, I understand people have different tolerances, but we do see this a lot when parents have multiple homes, such as a parents that's gone through divorce, that children have zero tech boundaries at one house and strict tech boundaries at another house. This is not okay. Expectations need to be consistent and they need to be understood. Okay. And remember, sometimes when children are testing boundaries, a lot of times they'll test a boundary and boundaries are safety, boundaries are love. And when they're saying to you, look at me, I'm breaking this rule, I like it to think of it like a kid's asking, do you love me? And I remind them of the rule and say, yes, I do, because that is what creates safety is consistent rules and boundaries. If you have to change a rule or a boundary due to extenuating circumstances, then you have that conversation, but they understand that the same expectations exist on the norm. Those boundaries that we have are understanding that you cannot have unlimited tech time. You cannot go to bed watching YouTube because it's the easiest thing to do. It's not good for your brain. You cannot go 7 days without a bath, even in middle school. I don't care how much Axe body spray you put on, you got to brush your teeth and you also probably need to take a bath. We have to have those boundaries. And look, following those boundaries is pretty important because all of us who are adults know adulting is no fun, but it's things we have to do because it's part of our responsibilities. We teach this early on to children. The productive struggle is letting kids figure stuff out with you there, of course, to help them. It's not to let them drown in a storm, it's to let them try to figure stuff out on their own. Even if you're in a hurry, giving them time. I think that's what I see a lot of. We call it permissive parenting, but what I see is it's rushed parenting. There are so many things that we as parents are being forced to do so quickly. Go, go, go. We overschedule our kids. We overschedule ourselves. Our emails are never stopping. Our phones are never stopping. Our alerts are never stopping. And so our brain gets into this high gear. Well, childhood can't be rushed. So when we start to rush our kids, that's when their brains get stressed. And that's when we start to see that their brains are starting to be reactive. But this productive struggle, watch how your child handles challenges. Do they give up? Do they get angry? Do they look for different ways to solve it? Because this is going to be important. As they age, the struggles are going to get bigger and bigger. They got to be able to do the little things that are hard before they can do the big things that are hard. And then finally, responsibilities. I do believe children should have chores, and I do not think they should be paid for them. As we all are members of a family unit, we all build the family unit. We are all here to work together, and it's not all on mom, it's not all on grandma, it's not all on dad. It's all of us working together, and we all have chores, and we all have things to do. And there are thousands of age appropriate chores you can find online, but better yet, just look around your own house and say to your child, this is your responsibility now. And this is the expectation as part of this family. We all pick up the pieces here. We all help each other. We all serve each other. Okay. We don't do everything for our kids, but we teach them that we help them learn that they can do things. Okay. Now, we need the sweet stuff. And the sweet stuff, this is what makes your family families. Your family, your family. Are you a hiking family? Are you a water family? Are you a park family? Are you a movie family? Are you an indoor family? Are you a library family? Are you a theater family? No, it's what makes you you. What are your values? What are your traditions? What makes y'all laugh together? What do y'all have fun with? Remember, the memories that your kids are going to have aren't the expensive ones. And I think if you look back at your own childhood, you'll see that too. They are the crazy moments. They are the moments that made your family unique and special. You got to have the sweet stuff. Now, let's talk balance. What if you add too much sugar to cookies? They're not good. You always think, oh, the sweeter the cookie, the better. But I think all of us as adults will honestly say that yes, sometimes too much of a good thing is a bad thing. And we'll leave it at that. We can have too much sugar. We can have too much flour. We can have too much of a binder. The problem is that too much of anything is not healthy. We can look at this for childhood too. Too many rules is not healthy. We're not wanting to live in a regimented home. We want to live in a safe and predictable home. We also want kids to be able to understand that sometimes life changes. And sometimes we have to, quote, go with the flow, that cognitive flexibility. But we have our norms and our expected norms. What if you have too much technology? What if you have too many toys? What if you have too much? We can give too much. Now, let me tell you what we can't give too much to. I have yet to see any study that says we can love them too much. If they're seeking 100 hugs one day and it doesn't make any sense to you, give them 101 because they may be going through something. And as a mom who has raised children and they are now 20s, you'll never remember, or I should say, you'll never know what day is the last day. And let me explain that. What day will be the last day they ask you to tie their shoe? What day will be the last day you're walking into a store and you reach your hand down and they don't grab your hand back because they're too big? What day is the last day they don't ask you for a bedtime kiss or a hug? What day is the last day they'll ask you to push on a swing because they can do it? You see, there's always going to be these milestones where they get more independent. So all I can tell you is I know if you're a young parent, you're like, look, I'm exhausted. I'm tired of tying shoes. I get it. I get it. But there's this part of me that would go back and tie shoes one more time because that was when my son would start talking to me about something. funny on the playground or whatever. Or that one time you're walking into the store and just grabbing your hand. And if that's just one of those moments that when it stopped happening, I remember feeling the sadness from it, but understanding that they had gotten older. Anyways, enjoy it too, but just also know that life needs a balance. Let's talk about time. There is a lot of information right now coming out whew, of European countries, of Australia, also about how we are rushing childhood. And you can't rush childhood. If you put cookies in the oven and you put them on 500 because you want them a little bit quicker, what's going to happen? Right? And what we see in our country is this rush that they learn faster, they do more, that they can, do more in kindergarten than they've ever been able to do before. And there's been some conversations that kindergarten today was the second grade when I was growing up in the 80s. We are pushing so hard, yet there is some brand new research out saying that boys are still struggling to read in middle school. If we're pushing down so fast, if we're pushing all this down so quickly, then why are we seeing struggles later on down the road? And the reason is we have a weak learning foundation because we didn't take the time. You can't rush childhood. Let them play. Let them have unstructured play. Let them get hot. Let them be wet in the rain and the mud if that's what they want to splash in the mud on a Saturday and you've got time to let them be. Don't rush it. It means very, very little if they are able to read a chapter book in kindergarten, but then are struggling in third grade with peer relationships or emotional regulation or impulse control. I'm not saying we stunt them, but what I am saying is don't rush it. Enjoy it. Let's build, instead of going higher, let's go deeper. Sing those songs with them. Play those board games with them. I love board games. They are school readiness in a box. Candyland. I tell you what, you want to see where your child is? Pull out a board game. See how they are on their social skills. See where they are on understanding losing and winning and problem solving. Have fun with it, and you'll start to see very quickly where they are. So here's what we know. The ingredients matter. Balance matters. Time matters. And that's what we need for our recipe for our strong families. We have to have it all. You don't have to have every brand new toy out there. In fact, most toys are going back to the quote good old days when they required more creativity. You don't have to have the latest and greatest. You have to have those elements, those foundation, the binding, a little catalyst to help them grow, and then what makes your family that sweet stuff. What we know is different families have different recipes, but they have the same ingredients. We don't want a perfect parent. You simply just got to keep showing up and adding those ingredients that matter the most. And here's what we know. One moment, one choice, one connection at a time. And what's great is if you have a bad day, which we all will as parents, it's okay because tomorrow will be a good day. If you have a bad morning, the afternoon can be better. Showing up for your kids, being resilient, showing them how to navigate stresses too is important. And I think that's where we need to understand that as we are navigating for the first time ever in our society, in our human culture, drowning in information. We're realizing that even as parents, we're getting pulled away from that innate knowledge of what our children really need. So don't be too hard on yourself. And look, if you really don't know where to start, grab a kid, grab a recipe, go make cookies. Just not the ones off TikTok, please. Make sure they're good cookies. Talk to you soon.